is the fifth episode of our Next Gen Visionaries podcast. Through this podcast, we intend to capture journeys and insights of visionaries shaping the future of Indian businesses. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Varun Gupta, the Next Gen of India Paper Products. India Paper has been a trusted name in paper business for over 60 years. They started with raw supplying to printing and packaging industries. Today, they pretty much cover 80% of all paper requirements across industries. Unlike many SMEs, they didn't stop with just that. They launched a brand, Artica, in 1995 and ran it successfully till date. Since Varun joined in 2004, he has contributed to the growth of company beyond South to all over India and overseas. Welcome, Varun, to the podcast. It's our
Thanks,
pleasure to
Arjun.
have you here.
Thank you.
You have quite literally grown up along with India Paper. You would have watched it evolve into a larger, bigger play, expanding geographically as you grow. Can you tell us a little bit about what did you observe? What did you see from the sidelines as you grow up? And how did the business evolve over these years?
Yeah, so to tell you a little bit about the group, it started off from Delhi, where the family is based from. So I've got my better part of the family operating out of Delhi, and slowly we branched out to other parts of India as well. So currently, the operations where the family members are based out of are Delhi and Bangalore, and now Bombay as well. And from here, we've got regional managers at various other locations managing the operations from there. And about 7 to 8 years ago, we launched our overseas operations as well. So that's doing well for us. And we are exporting paper out of the from Indian paper mills to the MENA region. And yeah, growing up on the sidelines, I think like any other business family, you always hear these terms, something like a GSM, which maybe, not many people may be able to relate to it for a layman. But growing up, we always knew, what it meant. And I guess that was like slowly getting groomed into and getting seeded into the business. I think it worked well because the transition from being a student to again joining the business, it worked well in settling in.
How many of you family members are in the business and how do you work? How does the interplay work?
So I think our roles are very evenly defined. Like we know the piece that we are handling, and each one is responsible for their own piece. In that sense, it works well because you're not really treading each other's paths, and you're working towards the growth of the entire organization together. So that's the common goal at the end of the day. In that sense, I think being part of the family has helped. Obviously, there are some at times you may have a different opinion on things, but I think it's also important as you go along to learn and accept and also look at what is best for the company.
And I mean, when you are playing clearly in your field and you're only being giving advice to the others on their topics and not getting too much involved in their kind of field that they are playing with, it becomes easier, right? So it's not that there is any conflict anymore. But who defines these roles for you? Like, how is it done? I've heard of family businesses having constitutions for running their key roles and responsibilities among family members. How is it like in your company?
So for us, there isn't really a defined constitution as such on paper, but I guess it just happens organically, where you are given a piece that this is the part of the business that you are going to be taking care of, and ultimately, I guess the good part is that you are responsible for the entire piece. It's not just the purchase, it's not just the marketing, it's not just the sales, not just the recovery. So you're in charge and responsible for that entire
To
chain.
end for one business unit.
Yes. So in that sense, I guess you have a good experience from one end of the purchase to the other end of the sales. So it works well in terms of gaining knowledge as well along the way on how things should be done.
So for you, when you stepped into the business, was it a natural transition or is it some learning curve for you? Like you said, you mentioned about hearing about GSM and naturally developing the language along the way when you grew up, right? So how was your initial years in the business? What kind of learning curve was it? I mean, normally when you join a company as an employee, you gives you 10, 15 years to learn the ropes of the business and all of that. But in a family business, you don't have that luxury. You are put directly into the running of a business or unit or something like that. So how did you navigate those? challenging years?
So personally, for me, a family business, I guess it happened by chance because I never really wanted to enter the business soon after my studies. I wanted to work for another company, but I guess, God has his own way. So that didn't quite happen. There were some family situations because of which I had to be drafted into the business. And yeah, I think since then it's been good. Personally, I didn't want a situation where I'm my own boss from day one of working. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to experience corporate life as well, where I am, pretty much working under someone. Because in family businesses, although you have your extended families, your parents, always there to guide you, but still it's not the same equation as a employer-employee. So there's always a soft corner which comes into play. So I never really wanted that to come in, but it's been good. I think since I came in, there was always there were always people to guide me and correct me, and I think that worked to my advantage during my initial days.
When you took charge of things and the business is like kind of the overall business packaging and printing industry as such also evolved very quickly from the early 2000s, right? So there's a lot of change and transition, be it digitization in printing or be it sustainability and packaging sustainability and all of that, that leading to demand of paper, etc. So how was it for you to manage this change? What were some of the tectonic shifts that you watched after you joined the business, and how did you turn them into opportunities, maybe?
So I think one of the good learning curves for me was that when we joined, or rather when I joined the business, we were representing a company by the name of Stora Enso. So Stora Enso is one of the leading paper mills in the world and predominantly operating out of Sweden and Finland. And we used to represent them for their products for the Indian market. Now, coming from that space, I think it was amazing because you had these great range of products. And again, it was not like restricted only to packaging or to printing. It was the entire gamut of paper products. And some of these products were not even available in India back then. So the Indian paper industry has also made its own strides since then. They have upped the game and they have really come up to international standards as far as manufacturing of paper within India is concerned. So, in that sense, I think it was great to know the world outside India as far as paper is concerned, the kind of products that are available in the international market, and also to see the gap that exists in India and to see that transition where Indian paper mills have now tried to emulate what's happening internationally and try to rise up the technology ladder as well.
Somebody like kind of leaves the organization, you've been nurtured relationships for years, and then there is some sudden shift. How do you manage transitions like that?
Yeah, I think you need to take it in your stride and move on. And I think change is the name of the game. So one cannot be complacent and you cannot really be dependent on one piece of a business. And, like it is with stocks, that's like one stock which you have bought, you can't just hold on to it emotionally because you bought it. If it's not doing well, you need to let go. So I think the same thing applies for business as well. If you have a piece of business which is not doing well for you, then you need to let go of it and then move on.
So basically, diversification is the name of the game in some way, and basically not having too many ducks parked in one place.
Yes, I think for sure, even in our piece of business, it is extremely critical to have a diverse portfolio. I think we've been fortunate as a group where our products are across the board and we have the offerings with us. We've been extremely fortunate because in the past we've seen that there are companies who have like limited themselves to one product category. I mean, although at times it works to your advantage where you are concentrating and you're a specialist in that particular product, but sometimes it can work to your detriment as well because you ultimately are concentrated only to that product and you don't have any other offerings.
I also see that your sourcing is also diversified. Of course, your product presence and all of that across industries is diversified, but sourcing, interestingly, you source from Europe, Indonesia, China, Japan, and US. Why do you have such wide footprint, and what kind of hiccups or import issues do you run into, and what do you do to solve them? Like, This is very, each regulation is different in each of these countries.
Yeah, so I think the imports come with their own challenges. I don't think imports can ever be a substitute for domestic availability. That's what we also think as a group that our bread and butter is definitely going to come from a domestic sourcing. But there are certain products which aren't available in India, and that's where we look at the overseas market to source them. So currently, the products also that we are bringing in, most of them are not really available, or that kind of a quality is not really available within India. And that's the reason, we do source from these many countries. But having said that, like imports come in with their own challenges. So just to give you an example, about exactly a month back, so the government came up with a notification for imports of paper, where they had imposed an MIP, which is a minimum import price for any of the multi-layered papers which are coming from Indonesia or China. And that has completely flipped the game around, because earlier you had papers coming in from these countries at much cheaper prices than the domestic offering. And that's kind of shifted the game, because uh, the Indian paper mills were just not able to compete at those price levels. So what the government has done is now they have fixed a price that any paper, regardless of the price, any paper which is getting imported cannot be imported less than a certain price point. So that's why they have fixed the minimum import price. So these kind of changes that come in, government can come up with their own set of rules, and that can be a game changer for the entire industry. So for a company which is like Delhi,
We are all living in a very turbulent times with respect to tariffs, import duties, custom duties, GSTs. So there's a lot of change that is happening, not only because of natural causes or technology changes, but also because of regulatory standpoint of view, right? So how do you navigate or how maybe handle such changes? But is it again by diversification or do you have backups in place?
so I think it's going to be very difficult to really, predict these kind of situations. Or for Trump to come up one fine day and say that there is going to be a 50% tariff on Indian products. Again, these things cannot be really predicted, and you can never be prepared for it. So I guess, we just need to, it's something that the times that we live in, and we need to be prepared for moving forward, and maybe adapting to the changing environment.
But again, going back to our central theme, probably looking at other markets, diversifying and supplying and procuring from other markets. Maybe these are some of the things that we need to keep in mind. And I have, in my experience, I've seen companies which have one customer contributing to 80% of their sale. Forget about geographical diversification or customer diversification. But here I'm talking to a company which has made sure that at every level you guys have nicely diversified from sourcing to selling. You have basically diversified yourself across industries as well and locations within the country as well. So I want to understand the thinking behind it, the cost versus benefit dynamics, because retrospectively everything makes sense, Varun. But when you were making these choices, it would have been with some kind of foresight, right?
Yeah, so, like I said, I think we've been fortunate in that sense, where we have really diversified not only as far as the products with are concerned, but also geographically. So even for an overseas paper mill that is looking to like set foot in India, then we become like a natural partner to them, where we have a presence across markets, and that kind of gives us an edge over, our competitors, where they may be restricted to a certain geography. So that has definitely helped us, and that is a choice which has been made. Where and we've been fortunate that we've had those many hands within the family as well, to shoulder these responsibilities.
So you might have worked with a lot of employees also in the family. So how does the dynamic of professionals and the family people work? And why did you say you were fortunate enough to have family members? What benefit do you see working with the family over professionals?
With family, I think it's worked very well, because you're very receptive to what they have to say. I think you always know that it's coming from a safe space, and they mean good for you. You don't really have the internal politics of it all, which may play out otherwise in an employee-employer kind of a relationship. So in that sense, I think it has worked well as far as the family is concerned. They mean the best for me.
The interests are absolutely aligned. They wish the best for you, and that really makes all the difference, right?
Yes, for sure.
A little bit diving into the topic we touched upon earlier, but we left it uh, in midway. Sustainability is changing a lot of things about paper industry as we are watching it. So the whole dynamic of demand supply is also changing because of it, because suddenly there is a lot of requirement for along with the sustainability goals that is coming up in the paper industry. So that would push up prices, increase the demand, and all of this. How are you managing the dynamic, the demand supply dynamic? What are you doing to be prepared for the extraordinary demand that's going to come because of sustainability goals and other implementations that are happening across the world?
So I think sustainability is really the buzzword for today. I mean, everyone that you speak to talks about sustainability. And at times, I think the people also who are talking about it don't know what sustainability really means. That's the funny part of it because, at times people are talking about sustainable material, which isn't really sustainable. So just to give you a small example, the government had made a change in the packaging policy for gutka packets. And because these packets were just thrown on the streets and, ultimately they were clogging up the sewage system, they were not biodegradable, they were not biocompostable. So the government came up with this ruling that it needs to change from plastic packaging to paper packaging. And overnight, this created a demand of 20,000 tons of paper within India because that paper was not even available in India. This paper, you had customers, good companies who were airlifting paper out of Europe, out of Indonesia, wherever it was available, just to meet the requirement. So all this happened, and like I said, ultimately people don't even know the kind of changes which they're making because the paper again was getting laminated onto an aluminum foil, and that lamination also was being done with a plastic layer on it. So these kind of changes which actually come about aren't really thought through, which they should be. And yeah, so that's the reason I say that, sometimes we kind of tend to misunderstand what sustainability really means. Like even today, I'm sure even in your emails, you would read, don't cut trees, save paper, do not print. And I think this kind of a messaging is, the paper industry isn't a very glamorous industry as such, and they don't really have a voice. Probably as an industry, it's still small when you compare it to the others. And that's the reason the real crux of it doesn't come out to the public eye. You have activists who have a louder voice probably, but ultimately, if you see even economically, commercially for a paper mill, it is only to their benefit that the green cover always remains sustainable. If you have got a depleting green cover, it's that much less source of raw material for the paper mill. So it is in the interest of the paper mill. So what actually happens is that for every tree that is cut, there are three additional trees that are planted to ensure that the green cover is maintained. And there's this very interesting picture that I had seen of a paper mill which was coming up on a barren piece of land. And the before and after picture is actually startling because the before picture is just a barren land, it's a brown piece of land. And the after picture, once the paper mill is fully functional, it's a fully green cover. And
The source.
yeah. So that's the difference, because I think a lot of the times people don't really understand what sustainability really means. And the paper industry, I think, is well aligned as far as sustainability is concerned. But there are certain regulations now in place which are, again, more stringent and forcing paper mills also to comply with it more strongly. Yeah.
It's interesting. So you're saying there's a lot of greenwashing happening in the name of sustainability, which is not actually greenwashing. I've also learned about this composite materials where there is a laminate or a plastic sheet, which is a lot more harmful substance, not really reprocessable because the separation is not possible anymore. So, is there some kind of activation or policy recommendations you guys are doing? You are one of the leading players in the paper industry, right? So, as an educated partner in the whole ecosystem, like you said, you guys need the green cover because that is your raw material. You will be the first ones to want to maintain it. So, have you done some kind of policy recommendations or basically educating the government in this aspect?
So definitely, I think as an industry, there have been efforts to really educate the public at large as far as or as much as they can to really inform people that this is what is actually happening. So there have been initiatives which have been taken in schools as well, to educate the younger generation of what really paper means, and also going back in time and asking children to write letters and post it to their relatives, and those small little initiatives just for them to get interested and for them to know what really entails. Not many people would actually know the kind of investment also that goes into paper mills, for something as common as a paper. I mean, I don't think anybody would even envisage the kind of investment that companies are making to have a paper mill today. So, just to give you an example, one of the leading paper mills in India, they had come up with a packaging board mill very recently, and they invested around 1,800 crores for setting up the packaging board plant. So that is the kind of investment which is required today to set up a state-of-the-art facility.
I've also, and I read about paper and packaging industry. What I also observed was printing, whatever printing is required, that is evolving as a technology very quickly. And every time you have a setup, new setup of printing equipment, there's a lot of capex involved. And before you get the ROI on through printing, the technology is already changing, and there is somebody on the block who has a better printer or something like that. So, how do you guys? I mean, you were also mentioning about the paperboard technologies and all of this. How do you guys plan expansions in this kind of very uncertain situation where new technology is taking over every day?
So I think it's important to keep your ears on the ground and to just see on where the change is really happening and to align yourself to the market and make sure that you're not really missing out on the bus. So it is important to catch the wave in that sense. I think the only way that that can be done is if you really have a good understanding of the market and know the trends as to where it's really going.
Studying the technology evolutions quite closely, understanding what is happening from an upgrade perspective, when to time the investments, etc.
Yes, for sure. I mean, to make sure that you have the availability with you, and also to see the kind of progression which is happening as far as the technology is concerned is extremely important because our end, to provide the substrate for the printers, we need to be well informed as to where the trends are and how we can get ourselves to have those products in place.
From your studies, what do you foresee in the next 5-10 years in your industry? And how do you think the industry is shaping itself? And what do you think are different roles that the ecosystem players will start playing, especially because of the digitization or AI or the sustainability goals or whatever is the change impacting the industry?
So as far as digitization is concerned, definitely I think it's catching up and it's doing well. But as a country, I think we are far away from it. That side of it, we see it play out a lot in the Western countries, where something like a newspaper or magazines have seen negative growth. Whereas in India, we don't really see that. We are still want our morning newspaper in hand with a cup of chai. That's it's almost a part of your daily routine. So I think India is still at a very nascent stage, and thanks to the government initiative of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan as well, it has seen a tremendous growth. I mean, just to put things in perspective, the per capita consumption of paper is at 18 kgs, whereas the world average of paper consumption is at 52 kgs. So that kind of gives a and considering the kind of population that we have, I mean, I think there is a huge scope for growth as far as paper is concerned. Internationally, as far as uncoated paper is concerned, uncoated paper is the notebook paper that we have. Internationally, that's seeing a negative growth. I mean, like you mentioned about digitization, a lot of it is shifting back. But in India, we still feel that there is a huge growth. It still has a positive 5 to 6% year-on-year growth. And we also seen in the hygiene segment with tissue papers, that's almost got a double-digit growth in India. Post-COVID, I think that's the hygiene factor has been emphasized even more, where people are, adapting to it. I think in our own homes, we are using tissue more than ever. So that's playing its part as well.
Yeah. Major tissue crisis, if I remember, during the COVID tissue paper crisis that we are all going through.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting to learn that there are so many dimensions in which this whole thing is playing out. The sustainability on one side is encouraging composted paper, which is not good, and on the other side, it's encouraging certain uses of paper and reducing certain uses of paper. I really love the motivation that you're doing to children to start writing. The written word has an emotion to it, which a digital word can never kind of copy, right? So that's beautiful in a way.
I also feel the kind of expression that you can give, in a written letter is very different to, say, a text message or a WhatsApp message. That makes a big difference. I've got my daughter studying in a hostel right now, and I think it makes a huge difference because my mode of communication to her is with written letters only, and it's only once in a while that we get to speak.
I make sure my team prints out every document that they need review of. And they are always saying, why don't you review it on the screen? I'm like, only a written letter, something that I understand. I'll print it out. Some of these are old good habits, good old habits that we should all carry forward. So, if I have to summarize one thing as a philosophy of your business document, what would it be? Like, what is that one mantra that we should all take away from this conversation?
I think the mantra would be that you need to adapt to the changing times. It's extremely critical, I think, especially today where we live in. I was just seeing this video where there were certain passengers who were asked to deboard given the H-1B visa situation. So, I mean, you never know where calamity strikes, so you need to be prepared for it. And the only way that you can be is to adapt. The only constant is going to be change. So I think it's very important to really adapt to yourself to the changing times. That would be my takeaway from it.
This is really superb, Varun. I had a lot of fun talking to you, conversing with you. Thank you so much for sharing your life journey and your key takeaways of running this business, like being core part of this business for the last 20 years, 20 odd years. Wish you and India Paper the great success in the future. You have any closing remarks to make?
Probably to the newer lot, to the new gen coming in, there's only one thing that I would like to share. There's this small piece that I had read somewhere, and I think it's very aptly put, where it says कि कुछ लोग तुम्हें समझाएंगे, वो तुमको खौफ दिलाएंगे, जो है वो भी खो सकता है, इस राह में रहज़न है कितने. So it basically means that there are always going to be dangers inside. Rahzan actually means like a highway robber who's going to come and take away everything that you have, so be careful. It's something like which our older generation also always tells us that be careful, don't tread a very adventurous path. And the answer to that goes on to say कि कुछ और तो अक्सर होता है, पर तुम जिस लम्हे में जिंदा हो वो लम्हा तुमसे जिंदा है. ये वक्त नहीं फिर आएगा, तुम अपनी करनी कर गुजरो, जो होगा देखा जाएगा. So it's important to really follow your heart and do your own thing. I think that's also very critical. Yeah.
It's really powerful poem that you have mentioned, Varun. I mean, my Hindi is not so great, but what I take away, what I understand and take away is this moment lives by you. You are living in this moment, but the
Absolutely.
moment lives by you, right? So this moment is made because of you, or you are us for making this moment. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I think it takes away all kinds of self doubts anybody has, and this is the moment that we live for. And whatever small change we make in this world is an important change for this moment at least.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
beautiful thought, lovely thought. And thank you so much. Such a pleasure talking to you. I hope and look forward to conversing with you more.
Yes. Likewise, Saujanya, thanks for doing this. Thank you.